ladies and gentlemen, today I'm doing a guitar lesson for Little Birdie by Ween. This is the opener, actually, on Pure Guava. I've always thought this was such an odd choice for an opener, but I guess that's Pure Guava in a nutshell, right? It's almost like opening with anything else would be it'd be too predictable. I can't imagine anyone else in the world other than these guys looking at this sequence of tracks and being like, yes, this is the opener. That being said, this song's actually grown on me quite a bit, and the chords are actually the chord progression's pretty neat. There's essentially 3 distinct progressions in this, and the chords are not out of this world. They're super basic, but putting them together in this exact way is pretty neat, and the actual way of playing it is pretty neat. Now, when they play this live, I think this is an instance where the fingering of exactly what they're doing, to me, sounds quite a bit different than what they probably were doing on the album. Or it could just be an instance of Gene and Dean overdubbing 2 different guitar parts, and the 2 of them kind of being different, kind of the push and pull between the 2 gives it the certain unique sound that you hear on the album, and when they play it live, it's, because it's so different that it's hard to replicate. Anyway, so in terms of just tone, it's just your typical kind of clean guitar tone. I could put a little phaser on it, not phaser, flanger, because there's a super heavy flanger on at least one of the guitars. Might be like the lower guitar in the background. But to start the song off, it's this could have been like a tape sound or something. I've heard some people theorize, but I'm pretty sure it's a guitar bend. By the way, the the album version is a half step higher in pitch. The song is kind of in G. Sorry, not G, E. E major. And the album version is more like F. When they play it live, it's an E. You can only assume they played it in E. It starts off with a guitar pre-bend way up at the really at the 11th fret. I'm going to be talking as if I'm playing it in E, but on the album it's more like that pitch, but you do 1 half step lower and it'll be more in tune with what they're doing. So it actually bends down. It's like a half step pre-bend up to the 12th fret, but you're on the 11th. And it bends down pretty quick. Then it brings it back up with a tiny bit of vibrato. And then he kind of does it on the lower string. He slides down. And then, so the basic first chord progression is B, A, G, E. They're all major, right? So that's the basic chord progression. Now there's a bunch of different ways you can play this. When I see him live, Gene's doing this kind of fingering. Sorry. It's basically moving that E major shape, where it's just the E major shape on the A, D, and G strings. He's basically just moving that. It's kind of like a bar chord, but he's just got those 3 notes there. He's just moving that. Maybe having, every once in a blue moon, having those open strings in there. Moving it from the position to the, and finally there. So it's just starting up here on this will be the 9th fret. And that's the 8th. And then you just move that down, and then open. And to me, it sounds a lot more like, and Diener would be doing basically the bar chord, but he's doing it with the thumb. Without the high E in there, except for the open E. But on the album, to me, it sounds a lot more like they're doing this. So it's basically kind of like the bar chord based on the A string, B major, A major. Again, not hitting the high E on those 2. And then throwing in the cluster of open strings there. Most importantly, the open G with like the D and the high B. Those 2, the D and G, are really like makes the riff. So hitting that B like twice, strumming it, then getting that open D and G in there, and hitting that A, and then starting off with like the open G and D, then arpeggiating the open G. I don't really hear this note in there, the third. You can just mute that. And then hitting that, pulling off on the high E from the third to the open. And then hitting that open E. So that's the first like progression. And if you have your whammy bar, I don't have one at the moment, but that's a good way to, when you first hit the G, it's a good way to kind of dip that. He does it every once in a while. And then the second progression is D, and then C to G. It just does that 4 times. But what he's doing on the album, he's doing more like he's hitting the D. He could be doing this bar chord too, but and at first I thought he was just hitting that C note. But it's more like when you see him do it live, he's kind of bending it up. It's more, you hear more of the C note bent up than the B note on the bending up on that second to the A. And then he hits that, he's mostly just hitting that one note on the G, but he's also hitting, some of the other open strings below it. Again, not the A string, muting that. And then just, you can have a rhythm guitarist in the background just doing that C, just strumming it, but the main guitar is doing that. Right? And then the other progression is C. It's kind of cycling back and forth between a C. And I swear sometimes it sounds like an E major to me on the album, but apparently we see him do it live, and Gina's just fingering an E minor. He's just cycling back and forth between a C and E minor. Although sometimes I hear him, like on the album especially, hear him slide up. I did that at the beginning, basically doing that like D-shaped triad on the top 3 strings. But, it's a half step higher than a D, so it's an E. You can also just replicate that by doing a E bar chord based on the A string, 7th fret. And just... just throwing in those like E major things, I think makes it sound a bit more like the record. And then basically the way they transition out of that is just, after they cycle just like a kind of a faint open G chord. You don't want it to be super strong. You don't want like that note's definitely not in there. It's just an open B, and you don't want to hit it super hard. Like you just kind of want it to be, let it linger, and then they go back. Right. It's kind of, and then basically the way they end it is it's during that cycling back and forth between the C and the E. They're cycling back and forth between it. And they kind of end on an E major. It's definitely how they end it live. I guess you could end it on G theoretically, but I don't think it sounds as complete as just the ending on an E there. That's how they end it. It's kind of how it's essentially how they ended on the album. Just with that weird spoken word at the end. Sing together. That old bit. But thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed learning a little Birdy. And have a nice day.